The newest footage from China's Air Force looks like it was storyboarded with Washington in mind. A sleek GJ-11 mysterious Dragon stealth drone slides into view, flanked by a J-25th generation fighter and a J-16D electronic warfare jet. The three aircraft fly in tight formation, banking in slow motion through clean blue skies. It is not just an air show stunt, it is a message. That message is landing at a moment when President Donald Trump is already locked in a dangerous signaling contest with Russian President Vladimir Putin over nuclear weapons tests, missile trials, and doomsday systems. In recent weeks, Moscow has trumpeted long-range tests of its nuclear-powered Burevestnik cruise missile and the Poseidon underwater drone, while hinting it could resume full nuclear testing if the United States makes the first move. So when Beijing releases cinematic footage of an operational stealth drone flying as the point aircraft of a manned-unmanned strike package, and headlines ask whether Xi Jinping is intimidating Trump after Putin's nuclear showmanship, it taps directly into a deep American anxiety that the United States could face simultaneous pressure from Russia's nuclear gambits and China's fast-maturing drone and missile arsenal. The clip released by China's People's Liberation Army Air Force is short but packed with symbolism. It was published as part of an anniversary microfilm celebrating the PLAAF's 76th year and shows a GJ-11 stealth attack drone taking off from a hangar and then flying in formation with a J-20 and a J-16D. Chinese state-linked outlets frame it as the first time Beijing has publicly shown manned-unmanned teaming in action. The GJ-11 itself is a flying wing unmanned combat aircraft designed for deep strike missions. It uses radar-absorbent materials, internal weapons bays, and a shrouded exhaust to reduce both radar and infrared signatures. And it was first revealed publicly during a 2019 National Day parade in Beijing. Analysts see it as China's answer to US stealth drones like the RQ-170 and future long-range strike UAVs. In the new video, the drone leads the formation with the J-20 and J-16D slightly behind. That is not a random choice. It visually suggests that unmanned systems will be the first to push into heavily defended airspace, absorbing the riskiest missions while crewed aircraft remain further back, using their sensors and weapons through the drone as an extension. One Chinese report notes that the clip is tied to a broader campaign to showcase manned-unmanned teaming as a core part of future PLA operations. At one point in the promotional material, the voice of a fighter pilot is heard over the radio. A Chinese fighter pilot said Weilong 01 received, already collaborating with Xuanlong. Weilong is the nickname for the J-20, while Xuanlong refers to the GJ-11, a subtle way of telling viewers that the two platforms are now meant to work as a pair. For experts who have been tracking Chinese drone development, this footage doesn't come out of nowhere. Chinese documents and think tank papers have for years described plans for J-20 pilots to control multiple loyal wingman drones, using them to probe air defenses, soak up missiles, and deliver precision strikes. But moving from animation and PowerPoint slides to actual manned-unmanned formation flying is an important milestone. The timing is no accident either. Just weeks earlier, Beijing held one of its largest military parades in years, showcasing hypersonic missiles, underwater drones, and long-range air defenses through central Beijing, with Xi Jinping presiding and foreign leaders like Putin and Kim Jong-un watching from the stands. Taken together, the parade and the PLAF microfilm send a clear strategic message. China is not just catching up, it wants to be seen as setting the pace in unmanned and intelligentized warfare. The reference in the video title to After Putin is a nod to the other show of force that has dominated global headlines, Russia's recent announcements around new nuclear-powered systems and the possibility of renewed nuclear testing. In late October, Russian officials revealed that they had conducted a long-range test of the 9 M730 Burevestnik nuclear-powered cruise missile, saying it flew roughly 14,000 kilometers in around 15 hours. Around the same time, they announced the first nuclear-powered test of Poseidon, an unmanned underwater vehicle designed to carry a massive nuclear warhead and generate radioactive tsunamis near enemy coastlines. Vladimir Putin has touted these weapons as unique and suggested they could overcome any existing or future missile defense system. Russian state media calls them wonder weapons. Western analysts are more skeptical, describing the Burevestnik's test as at least as much political theatre as technological leap. The nuclear theatrics have been accompanied by harder-edged messaging from Moscow. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has reiterated that Russia would only conduct full nuclear tests if another nuclear power did so first, but also emphasized that if that happened, Russia would respond in kind. Sergei Lavrov said Russia will respond in kind. That is the environment in which President Trump has talked openly about resuming US nuclear testing and ordered a visible acceleration of US strategic modernization and missile trials. Russian commentary frames this as a return to a Cold War-style nuclear competition, but with China now significantly expanding its own arsenal and delivery systems in the background. So when a new Chinese video showcases advanced drones flying tightly alongside stealth fighters and electronic warfare jets, it is being interpreted through that lens of simultaneous pressure. Nuclear signaling from Moscow, drone and missile signaling from Beijing. Even without the latest Chinese footage, drones have become a central headache for US planners. In Ukraine, cheap one-way attack drones and loitering munitions have shown how relatively low-cost systems can overwhelm or exhaust sophisticated air defenses. Think tank war games around a Taiwan crisis have reached similar conclusions. A recent report by the Center for a New American Security, CNAS, warned that massed Chinese drone swarms could saturate US and allied defenses in the Indo-Pacific if Washington does not dramatically scale up its counter-drone capabilities. The authors highlight reports that Beijing has ordered up to 1 million one-way attack drones for delivery by 2026, drawing on both military and commercial supply chains. Summing up the risk, the CNAS report warned the United States could lose a war over Taiwan. The Pentagon has not ignored the problem. It launched the Replicator initiative to field thousands of attritable, that is, low-cost and expendable, drones across air, land and sea, aiming to match China's mass with US innovation. But that effort has run into delays, technical problems and procurement hurdles. And officials now concede that many systems have been late, unreliable or based on outdated technology. Meanwhile, US commanders warn that the threat is no longer just over there around US bases and critical infrastructure at home. There have been waves of mysterious drone incursions, some lasting days or weeks, where the military has limited legal authority to shoot anything down unless it poses an imminent danger. One detailed report described unidentified drones repeatedly swarming a stateside base over 17 days, with officials unable to neutralize them. From his position overseeing air defense of the US homeland, one senior commander put the challenge bluntly. General Gregory Gio said, "We certainly need new systems to counter this threat." Put that together with footage of a stealth drone flying in formation with cutting-edge fighters, and you see why US on high alert is more than just a dramatic headline. It reflects a genuine concern that existing US defenses built around expensive missiles and slow-moving procurement cycles are not yet ready for a world of massed, intelligent, autonomous systems. For President Trump, the optics are particularly sensitive. In his dealings with Putin, he has tried to project toughness, criticizing Russia's latest nuclear-powered missile test as not appropriate and urging Moscow to focus on ending the war in Ukraine instead of parading invincible weapons. President Donald Trump called the Burevestnik test not appropriate. At the same time, his own statements about resuming US nuclear testing and expanding America's nuclear arsenal are being cited by Russian officials as justification for preparing their own tests in kind. Now, Xi's drone show adds a second front to that signaling contest. If the Kremlin's nuclear-powered cruise missiles and underwater drones are meant to make Washington think twice about missile defense and escalation in Europe, Beijing's stealth drones and hypersonic parades are meant to make Washington think twice about intervening in a conflict over Taiwan or the South China Sea. For Trump, the political narrative is delicate. He has repeatedly argued that adversaries like Russia and China only take such risks when they sense American weakness, and he has promised to restore peace through strength. Yet each new weapons display from Moscow or Beijing narrows his room for maneuver. Failing to respond risks feeding the perception of intimidation. Responding too aggressively risks escalation. In that context, Xi's latest drone footage is not just a military development. It is a contribution to a psychological struggle over who appears to be dictating the tempo of innovation and deterrence. The immediate question is whether China's new GJ-11 footage represents a step change in capability or a polished PR moment. The answer is probably a bit of both. On the one hand, the basic technologies being showcased, stealthy flying wing drones, internal weapons bays, data, links between crewed and uncrewed aircraft are not wholly new. The United States, Russia, and several European countries have been working on similar concepts for years. US projects like the XQ-58 Valkyrie and various classified programs have already tested loyal wingman ideas. On the other hand, China's willingness to release footage of operational manned-unmanned formations suggests a growing confidence that these systems are ready for real exercises, not just lab prototypes. Chinese sources describe the GJ-11 as having internal bays that can carry multiple precision-guided munitions and the ability to perform deep penetration strikes under heavy air defense coverage. Seen alongside Beijing's broader buildup, from hypersonic glide vehicles to long-range anti-ship missiles and increasingly capable air defense networks, it reinforces the sense that any US intervention near China's coastline would involve fighting through layered, overlapping threats on the sea, in the air, in space, and in cyberspace. US analysts stress that the footage on its own does not prove the PLA has solved all the hard problems of networked warfare, making drones, fighters, jammers, satellites, and ground stations share targeting data seamlessly in a contested environment, while all sides are trying to jam, spoof, and hack each other, is massively complex. But even partial progress in that direction can make life much harder for opposing forces. So is Xi Jinping truly intimidating Trump with this new drone arsenal? In a narrow, headline-driven sense, the answer is yes. The imagery is designed to impress domestic audiences, reassure allies like Russia and North Korea that China is a heavyweight partner, and underline to Washington that any clash in East Asia will be fought on terms increasingly shaped by Chinese capabilities. But in a deeper sense, what the footage really shows is how much more vulnerable all sides have become in an era of cheap, intelligent, ubiquitous drones. The same technologies that let China send a stealth drone ahead of a J-20 also make it easier for small states, non-state actors, and even criminal or extremist groups to field their own swarms or conduct surveillance and harassment. The United States may feel on high alert today because of a specific Chinese video, but the underlying problem is broader. Existing institutions, laws, and arms control regimes were built for an age of manned bombers, ballistic missiles, and large, easily countable platforms. They are struggling to keep up with a world of software updates, commercial supply chains, and systems that blur the line between battlefield and homeland. That is why, even as Trump and Putin trade barbs over nuclear tests and Xi rolls out ever more sophisticated drones, many arms control experts are calling for at least limited transparency and confidence-building measures in the unmanned and AI space before a miscalculation or glitch involving autonomous systems triggers a crisis no one intended. For now, though, what the world sees are images. Russia's invincible cruise missiles arcing into the sky, China's stealth drones slicing through the clouds, and US officials warning that they are behind schedule on the cheaper, smarter systems they need to counter both. The contest is as much about perception as it is about hardware. And in that contest, a 40-second clip of a drone leading two advanced fighters may be doing exactly what Beijing intended, forcing Washington and President Trump personally to confront the reality that the era of uncontested US air power is over, and that any future showdown will be fought in crowded skies full of machines that are as much about psychology as they are about firepower.